Let's say good morning to our Facebook Live family. Welcome. You guys have missed so much this morning, right? Have they not? Oh my word, what a day we have had already. And you should, if you can come in, I recommend you get in here, because I'm telling you, the love in this room and the power in this room right now is through the ceiling. And we are melting the snow outside this place, right? With the warmth and the love that is going on right here. I am telling you. So anyway, welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston. And welcome to our Sunday celebration, which is here at 50 Dudley Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We are the consciousness of the science of mind right here in Massachusetts. And we are expanding this belief into a greater idea. Are we not?
Yes.
Absolutely we are. All right, so my name is Rev G. Stewart, and I, along with Rev Ed Tansey, are the founders and spiritual leaders of this amazing community of light, which is what we're going to be speaking about later today. So at this center, like all CSL communities, we learn and study and practice the philosophy of the science of mind that was founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes. And this is the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. Here, our first principle is oneness, and we practice this in one way by being radically inclusive and celebrating all paths that lead to that infinite energy or the God of your understanding, whatever works best for you. It is not important what you call it. What is important that you understand that you are using this power every moment of every day of your life, that it is the power that is carrying you through everything. That this power is being used by us through our thoughts and our beliefs, and is empowered by our emotions and feelings. That we are putting that into the reality to create what's coming into our lives. Ernest Holmes said we are a teaching and practicing order, so we teach classes. And if you want to know more about our classes, our Facebook Live family, we welcome you. We do online classes, and we do bring people in through the Zoom technology. So if you are interested in taking classes to grow this consciousness, most especially if it's not that easy for you to get here, we want to help you to grow as well, because that's what we are about, is growing in consciousness. So you can just go to our website at cslboston.org, and then please consider us in your circulation and tithing practice, because we know that circulation is a part of life, and as we circulate all of our abundance in many different ways in our life, that we are creating a world that works for everyone, and that is something that we are working on here as a part of our purpose. So by supporting this community with your financial gift, where you can go and make that donation at cslboston.org, and our community thanks you in advance for your support. So here we are, running close to the last month of our theme. Can you believe it? And our theme, of course, is spirituality in action. Have you felt that we have made spirituality a part of our active life in this year?
Yes.
With all the different themes that we've had, it's been really beautiful. I really enjoyed this. So this month we are celebrating the holy days. So each week we're talking about science of mind and how it relates to other things. And of course today we're talking about science of mind and the solstice. Now, of course, those of you at home, you missed the wonderful reading that Nan brought, and the beautiful song that actually Nan gave us words that were what I would call them more of a solstice type thing for Oh Holy Night. And our beautiful Martine just stepped up and sang it, and it was beautiful. So we were very blessed with that energy from both of you this morning. So I thank you for that. I kind of felt like the service was done after that. So I got a lot to follow here. So all right. So as most of us know, the winter solstice in northern hemisphere this year is December 21st. The winter solstice in the southern hemisphere is June 21st or 22nd. Today what I'd like to talk about is a few different solstice celebrations around the world, and then discuss how the solstice relates to the science of mind. So let me begin by sharing with you some things that I found on Britannica.com. Anybody remember the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yeah.
It's online! Because I've heard things about Wikipedia, and I'm always a little uncertain of that people can add things to it that maybe aren't necessarily true. So I went to Britannica. I went to the old home page, right? So what I like to start with is one of these things which I love, because as soon as I think about it, some of you who were present at the ordination, you saw the stole that I got, which had De Grazia. De Grazia is a painter who does Indians with these cherubim-type faces. And they don't really have faces on them, they're just the hair and the face, but it's just this beautiful thing. And De Grazia is a beautiful artist. But he was inspired by the Indians. And of course my mother, being an Indian fanatic, I was raised in an Indian household, I felt like, because we had kachina dolls and pots and arrowheads, and we even had an Indian blowgun with the Karari that they used. I was like, which my mother could never get rid of because nobody would take it. They said it's poison. So we just had this little vial of Karari sitting in the house. But I felt like I was raised in an Indian museum. And when my mother was getting close to making her transition before she moved out here, she wanted to give all of that. So she actually gave all of her Indian collection to the Kauai Indians in Palm Springs. So they took that as a part of what they would use within their own museum, which they're actually building right now. So it's very exciting. So what I wanted to talk about was this first one, which is Soyal, which is the winter solstice celebration of the Hopi Indians of northern Arizona. Ceremonies and rituals include purification, dancing, and sometimes gift-giving. At the time of the solstice, Hopi welcomed the Kachinas, protected energy, from the mountains. And then they also use prayer sticks, which they craft and are used for various blessings and other rituals. So I thought that was an interesting solstice celebration. But the interesting thing is the tie-in of the gift-giving, right? Because we talk about Christmas and all of the things and all that, Nan shared this morning about it actually being the 25th when a lot of those celebrations would take place. So it's just very interesting that became the Christmas celebration as well. So then another one is, of course, Yalda, and we spoke of this last week in our Season of Light program, or Sheb Yalda. And this is, of course, the Persian festival. Yalda, or Sheb Yalda, is the celebration of the winter solstice in Iran that started in ancient times. It marks the last day of the Persian month of Azar. Yalda is viewed traditionally as the victory of light over darkness. And it is the birthday of the sun god Mithra. So families celebrate together, and special foods like nuts, pomegranates, and all these things are done. And some people actually stay up all night to welcome the morning sun. It's very interesting. And a lot of that isn't just necessarily in Iran, but it actually is in parts of India where some of the people have gone to be a part of this, because it comes out of Zoroastrian tradition. It's very, very interesting. Now here's another one that I found, and I thought this one was kind of interesting. It's actually a Peruvian solstice celebration. So this celebration takes place in June rather than December. But for Peru, it is a winter solstice. And this is an Incan celebration in honor of the sun god. Originally celebrated by the Incas before the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. And the festivals included feasts and sacrifices of animals or possibly even children. So talk about wanting to be on the nice kid list, right? Because I'm sure it was probably the naughty kids that were considered for the sacrifices. We would like to think. No.
And they don't do that anymore.
No, exactly.
That's my background. I've actually been to that celebration.
I know. It was talking about that here. The Spaniards actually banned the holiday, but it was revived with mock sacrifices instead of real ones. And so it is, all of these traditions grow out of different things, and they grow into something now. So in the 20th century, it's still celebrated today. And we are so blessed to have a Peruvian with us. who knows of these things. So that's a beautiful thing. So I was very interested. I thought that was a very interesting celebration. So then we move on to, of course, the ancient Roman celebration of the festival of Saturnalia, and is perhaps the most closely linked with the modern celebration of Christmas. So I found this lovely Temple of Saturn online, and I thought that was just such a great thing to have in the background as I spoke about this. So this festival happens around the time of the winter solstice and celebrates the winter sowing season in Italy. There are games and feasts and gift giving. Again, that gift giving thing, right? And that's for several days, and the social order is inverted, and slaves do not have to work and are briefly treated as equals. Isn't that interesting? Back in that day. You know, back we know the Romans did have slaves, so it's very, very interesting. So there was an inversion of that celebration. So in Scandinavia, St. Lucia's Day is a festival of lights celebrated around the time of winter solstice. Although it is now meant to honor St. Lucia, who was a Christian martyr, it has been incorporated with the early Norse solstice traditions, which Nan so beautifully shared about some of those traditions and the Yule log and all of those things. So what happens is the girls dress up in white gowns with red sashes and wear wreaths of candles on their heads in honor of St. Lucia. But it's tying into that old traditional solstice energy. So it's very, very interesting, all of this. And then lastly, what I'd like to share with you is Dongzi, which is another tradition that we shared on our Sunday in the Season of Light program. And Dongzi is the arrival of winter, which is an important festival in China. It is a time for a family to get together and celebrate the year that they have had. Based on the traditional Chinese celestial calendar, the holiday generally falls between the 21st and 23rd of December. Interesting, all of these commonalities with this idea that Christianity ultimately chose the 25th for the, what they call the birth of Jesus. Although we don't really necessarily know any of that, but it all surrounds around that, so it's very interesting. It is as though we have started at an it is thought to have started at the end of the year festival, harvest festival, with workers returning from the fields and enjoying fruits of their labors with their families. They enjoyed such foods as tangyong, which are gluten rice balls. That sounds interesting in itself, doesn't it? That's one of the things that they enjoy at that time. So the commonalities in these different celebrations are the marking of the endings and beginnings. Would you agree? They're all about celebrations of endings and beginnings. And we know that the solstice marks the start of the solar calendar, or the solar year, and celebrates light and the rebirth of the sun. We know that. So it is a celebration of change. Sometimes many of us dread that word change, do we not? We struggle with it. We bounce up against it. We go kicking and screaming into change sometimes, yes. Yet change is the natural order of the universe. The one common denominator in all of life is change. It happens all the time. So I just want to share this quote because it really moved me when I read it. It was in the 365 Days of Richer Living by Ernest Holmes and Charles Barker. And I just love this quote because it so awakened me, and it spoke to this idea of change. The way is mental, not material. I struggle with matter, but I demonstrate with mind. Letting go of my struggle to change conditions, I have faith that the spirit within me generates what I need and what I want. Is that powerful? When I read that, I said, oh my God. I read the entire thing, which was this song, but this just jumped out at me. Because that is exactly what we are doing all the time. When we get stuck in the material, that's when we're fighting against that change, right? Or rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic as it goes down. Right? So I don't want to spend my time in the minutia of effect. I want to be in that first cause mind, that capital M mind. I just thought that quote was so powerful, and it so spoke to what we're talking about in this, really, when you think about it, because we're talking about all of these celebrations, all of these solstice ideas are a celebration of change, of a welcoming to the sun that is coming. Like Dan said earlier, by the 25th, we've got a minute more sun. But that minute more sun makes such a difference to us. It's so powerful. So we have to realize that. So many of these ceremonies and celebrations not only bring us together in community, they are a ritual of letting go. Letting go of fear. Letting go of separation. Letting go of limitation. And moving forward into the new. Into the change. By surrendering, we're taking our power. Does that make sense? Because I know that I've had to spend a lot of my time in my days of bouncing up against change and saying it's not good, it's not going to work, all of these things. And then when I found out that I could just surrender into it and trust that I would be guided, it made all the difference in my life. And I hope that makes the difference in your life as well. So as I speak of science of mind and solstice, let's start with what Ernest Holmes says in the glossary about light, because I think this is a very powerful thing that Ernest Holmes speaks to us about what light means according to science of mind. So he says this: light. In flashes of illumination, the inspired have seen into the very center of reality. When he says into the very center of reality, he does that all in caps. He wants to make that clear to us, that you are seeing into the center of reality when you work on this. And have brought back with them a distinct impression of what they have seen and felt. A glimpse of this reality illumines the whole being with a flood of light. How many of us have had a glimpse of that light? At some point, and even before we got into this teaching, there were moments in our lives when we had a glimpse into that light. Would you agree? Every mystic has had this experience, including Ernest Holmes, right? We know that. But he had his mystical experience. He saw that light energy. So I want to share something in this that I just think is so powerful. In his moment, in his illumined moment, his mystical moment. So Jesus was the greatest of all mystics, and once, at least, after a period of illumination, his face was so bright his followers could not look upon it. In moments of the deepest realization, the great mystics have sensed the one life flows through all, and that all are some part of that life. They have also seen substance, and this is what Ernest Holmes saw in his illumined moment. A fine, white, brilliant stuff forever falling into everything. Imagine that. A fine, white, infinite stuff. And that the substance is indestructible and eternal. So that's happening all the time. We don't see it because we're living in this appearance of effect. But when we take that time to move within, we can see that light. We can feel that light that he's talking about. So at times the realization has been so complete that they have been actually blinded by the light. Light was the first great revelation of divine creative energy that called all living things into being. Let there be light, and there was light. That's powerful. There is a healing light in the rays of the sun, which we term a physical light. There is a healing power in the wonderful high-powered lamps. But how much greater is the healing power which Jesus recognized in himself and in others? He didn't just recognize it in himself. He saw it in all He came to teach us that. We missed that in some points when we got caught up in worshiping outside of us, anything outside of us. I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall walk in the darkness, but shall have the light of life. I have set thee to be a light. He that loveth his brother abideth in the light. The sons of God without rebuke, ye shine as lights in the world. All of these references to light, that yes, they're in biblical scripture, but we find them in so many different scriptures, do we not? The light is there. We are that light. And when we remember that, we celebrate the solstice, do we not? Each time that we remember that light within us, we are celebrating that solstice consciousness. That joy of knowing that the sun is coming closer, and the days are growing longer, and life is good. Because it is. It is good. It is so powerful to realize that. So he goes to the mystics and he goes to that inner light. The divine light that is within each one of us. Each one of us have this light within us. And we know that. Some of these celebrations speak of the birth of light that appears in the darkness. But the truth is that light has always been there. And we have to just remember that. We have to move into the remembering. And we do that every day. Every day. Every day. Right? Because we have to keep remembering that light. Because life has the appearance of covering that light, does it not? And so, when we live that life and we can see the light, it's so much more powerful. And we can live in that light. So what comes to realization is that we are actually dissipating the darkness with our light. Because darkness comprehendeth light not. Think about it. You can't add darkness to get rid of light. But light dissipates darkness. It's powerful. It's a powerful realization. So, another thing that I would like to share too when it comes to this idea of celebrating the sun is our book of the month, which is by Joseph Campbell. Thou art that, transforming religious metaphor. And it's a whole book of taking the old metaphoric ideas of biblical, Judeo-Christian, and other ideas and giving them life in a new way. And so what I want to do is I want to share this piece that he has here, this little paragraph here. The sun is our second symbol of rebirth, evoking the idea of not coming back at all, but not being reborn here, but of passing beyond the spheres of rebirth, altogether to a transcendent light. So even moving beyond the idea of rebirth, which was the solstice idea of solstice origins. He goes on to say the typical idea for this is the sun. The moon carries darkness within it, but wherever the sun goes, there is no darkness. Is there a dark side of the sun? There is not. But there is a dark side of the moon. It doesn't receive light. And yet, there is light there too. So, there is only the shadows of those forces that do not open themselves to its light. Wow. Ouch, right? It comes back to like, I remember, anybody remember the times when we wouldn't let in the light? Right? We let other people, we let other situations, we let other things affect us and not let in the light. Like we weren't worthy, right? But you are worthy of this light because it's already there. It's yours. So, the light of the sun door speaks of yet another kind of rebirth, that of the return of the lost one. That is, the one who is lost in the spheres of shadows and time, who returns to that eternal root, that is his own great root. We are that great root. one of us can return to that great root of power that he's talking about. So that sun energy and what it means to us, and light, divine light, that is the truth of our being. So the sun shines its light continuously and without ceasing. I always remember, when it's a dark, cloudy day, that the sun is on the other side of those clouds, still shining. And I love when you fly in a plane, and you look down on the tops of the clouds, you're in the sun, and you look down on the clouds. That is so powerful to me. It's like the realization. It's like that realization in physical form, so that I can deepen it and make it stronger in myself to realize, the sun's just on the other side. And it can be experienced even though it is not seen. And that's the important thing. So the light is never reborn, it is eternal, and in this light there is no darkness. This is the same truth regarding our inner light. That no matter what the darkness may appear in our lives, that light is always shining. It can never be extinguished. We can never be separated from it. That's a powerful realization. When we experience a darkness or a sense of separation, it is simply us forgetting that we are made of divine light. Every part of you is light. There's some author somewhere, I remember somebody shared with me a while ago, I can't think of his name, but he spoke of that our bodies have the energy of light so strong that they can light a baseball field for a period of time. Is that amazing? And that's the light that we're made of. That's who we are. So at CSL, we are daily called to remember and bring ourselves back to this inner light. Would you agree? That's what we come together for. And that's what we do in community. And I hold the light for you when you can't hold the light for yourself. And my practitioners can hold the light for me when I can't hold the light for myself. It's powerful. It's a powerful circle of energy. And we can always call on each other. So that's always the important thing. So on our leadership council, we have been setting an intention to work on during the time between meetings. My intention is to stay out of effect and return to cause, which is what I've been talking about. So it's getting out of that place of effect. What that means is when I find myself working to try to fix the problem at the level of the problem, I must transcend consciousness to a higher level, to see it from a higher level. Because that's how I'm going to shift that problem into something true. I'm going back to cause, and know that in cause I can say, this is what I would desire. This is what I want. This is what I want to experience. And stay there. Yes, we go back to the cause, we go back into the effect sometimes, but it's okay. I can go back to cause. Anytime, at any moment, I can shift back. So do I succeed in this all the time? No. Some days yes, some days no. And that's okay. Because I just pick myself back up from wherever I am, and I step right back into that reality. The important thing is that I practice this every day, of every hour, or even every minute, whenever I need it. Keep calling back to that light. Keep remembering that that light is there no matter what. So here at CSL Boston, we are called daily to transcend our limited, separated ideas and beliefs to the divine light of truth that exists behind all effects, all conditions, and all outer experiences. As it says in the introduction, as I say in my introduction every week, Ernest Holmes said we are a teaching and practicing order. So we practice. Like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Exactly. So we learn and we practice. And that's what this is all about. So Ernest Holmes calls us to step into our practice in this. I love this quote. It is in this moment of time that we are to make the great decision. It is in this day in which we now are living that we must choose what path we are going to follow. Choice, always a choice. Shall we live in fear or in faith? Shall we live in confusion or in the peace that comes from a deep and abiding conviction that there is a power greater than we are, ready, willing, and able to work for us? Ready, willing, and able to work for us. Doesn't it make the practice easier when you know that there's something waiting there saying, I'm ready, willing, and able to make your life good? Right? So we don't have to hide in our fear or separation. We can share it with each other. We share it with those who we know can hold us in consciousness. We don't necessarily share it with everybody we see in the world, because there are those who can't hold that in consciousness. But I can be present for them until they're ready to step up into consciousness, right? Because that's how we flow. So Ernest is always speaking to us, and his words, I always find something new in it. In reading The Science of Mind and this, using the 365 days of reading the entire Science of Mind, I've been enjoying that so much. So as we look at Solstice and the Science of Mind, I get the feeling that rather than just one day of the year of celebrating, we are called to daily celebrate. So why do I say celebrate? Recently I was blessed with, thank you Maria for speaking when we took our vacation and going down to Williamsburg, Virginia. And I am very blessed that someone I know has a condo in Virginia Beach right on, it's like one condo back from the ocean. But on its little balcony, you can actually sit and look at the ocean from the balcony and from the bedroom window and over the cover. But anyway, so I was blessed to be able to take 3.5 days to be in silence by myself in this condo. And found myself walking on the beach, taking long walks, and just taking in all of it, sitting and looking at the waves, meditating and then opening my eyes and looking out at the water that was coming up on the shore and all of this. And in this time of silence, I was so blessed because I received a message from my inner voice in this silence. And it was, stop everything, no exceptions. And I thought, wow, what does that mean? And what I got from that is that we celebrate our wins. Many times we celebrate our wins, but do we celebrate our losses? Because our losses are guiding us to our wins, are they not?
Yes. Yes.
Our failures are taking us to that next level. When I read David Alt's book, The Grass is Greener Right Where You Are, I can't remember the exact wording, exact title, but when I read this, there was this one piece that touched me so deeply, and it was during the AIDS crisis. And of course, David Alt was part of the music team and became very close with Louise Hay during the Hayride, what they called the Hayride, which was when they were going through and helping people in consciousness when they were going through HIV, when there was no cure. There was no certainty. And one of the stories that that so touched me in this was that he talked about this mother who came in and she was sobbing, and she had a cupcake. And as she got through her sobbing, she started to share the story of why she was there. And her story was that she had promised her son who had HIV that she would celebrate everything every day. And they came together as a family. I think it was once a week they came together. And they would celebrate everything, no matter what it was. And that night she came in, she said, and this is the hardest celebration I've ever had to do, because he transitioned last week, and I'm here to celebrate. Celebrate. So we can even celebrate it in our pain. Because our pain is pushing us to a higher level. Pushing us to a greater place. So when we talk about the solstice and the celebration of the solstice and the celebration of the science of mind, it's about celebrating everything. No exceptions. So, I know there is something powerful that is being birthed through this message I got of celebration. And I can't wait to see what Spirit's going to bring forward for me, because I know it's going to be amazing. So I have to keep going back, but I have to keep it in my consciousness. I have to keep looking at my journal and seeing what I wrote, so that I can keep it fresh in my mind and let Spirit reveal what is yet to be revealed. So ask yourself, what is waiting to manifest as and through me right now? And then just go into the silence and trust that silence to guide you. Because that's what this is. It's settling back into that light and letting it guide us and letting it move us forward as a group. And if the silence or if the noise of the world separates you from your silence, just go back and do it again. Because it's about, what did we say? Practice. Practice. And that is what I call you to do today, is to ask Spirit what it is wanting to manifest as you. And just go into the silence and listen. All right, so let us pray, which of course is our spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of affirmative prayer. So just moving within into this moment, into this realization of the light. And even with the eyes closed, there is that sensation of light on the lids. Because that light is never lost, that light is never extinguished. And so the purpose of this treatment right here and right now is to recognize and realize that that is the light in each one here and each one on Facebook Live and each one who is in the archives. I know that this divine energy is giving light to each life and manifesting in amazing and powerful ways and dissolving all limitation and all fear. And so I just know right here and right now, this is what I know, is that there is an infinite universal energy, a creative source, a full and light-filled substance that is awake and aware, that is that white matter of energy falling into everything in all of creation. This energy and this power and this presence that is all light and all love and all joy and all peace, that I call the Mother, Father, God, that is awake in all of its creation, for it is the very source, it is the very substance. It is the life that appears in all matter. And this life is my life right here and right now because I am made up of that matter. I am brought together in this physical form right here and right now as an expression and an individual idea of this divine idea. And so as I recognize this for myself, I know that that has to be the truth for all throughout the cosmos. Each one in this room, each one on Facebook Live, and each one throughout the cosmos. Because there is nothing outside of this infinite source and substance. And so in this place of knowing who I am as a divine reality and who each one is, I call forth right here and right now that the light of the divine illumines each life, each heart, each mind. carrying through the manifestations of each one's life and empowering these manifestations to expand into overflowing, abundant, good, joy, peace, perfection, wholeness, allness right here and right now. I claim this, I declare this as absolute truth in this moment. I know that there is nothing but this light. And that this light is shining in each one right here and right now. It is shining in Washington, D.C. It is shining in all of the political people in the world. It is shining in each and every country, in each and every place, in each and every heart. I see it. I know it as absolute truth right here and right now. And I claim it as good. I claim it as good, knowing that it is perfected and wholly made right here and right now, and my heart is overflowing with thanksgiving and gratitude. In the realization that it is the Mother, Father, God's good pleasure to give the kingdom right here and right now, the light of the kingdom shining in and as and through each one. And so I can simply release, I can let go, I can surrender this word, this activity of prayer into that activity of law. The law that receives this and receives the impress of these thoughts and brings it into beautiful form right here and right now. It is done. It is complete. It is fulfilled. And I simply say, Amen, Ashe. And together we say, and so it is. So let's share our affirmation, which I think just so beautifully does. And this comes from Reverend Angelica Jane Taggart, spiritual leader of Eureka Center for Spiritual Living in California. Let's read this together. I celebrate the return of the light